Good morning. I hope that you're having a good day. I apologize for not being able to be with you. I am serving on a jury in a criminal trial down at downtown in one of the courtrooms down there today. I'm not sure when I will be back. Um, Not sure quite what the schedule is going to be, but I'm going to go ahead and go over the answers to the homework in this video, and then in a separate video, I will have your lesson notes. So let's go ahead and get started. Your assignment was in the book, number 1 through 17, I believe, on page 9 of the textbook. So let's take a look. Number 1, give an example of from your classroom of 3 collinear points. There are a lot of things that you could do for this. One of the ones that I would say would probably be, for example, if you look at the bottom of the desk, the legs, if you do the legs that are on the left side in one of the rows, or the legs that are in the front going across the room, any 3 of those would be collinear because they're all on the same line. The answer that your book gave is the intersection of 2 floor tiles. And I'm like, wait a minute, what points are you talking about? So their answer, I really dislike on this particular one. All right, number 2, the endpoint of ray ST is S. Remember, the first letter when you name a ray tells you where it starts. I've had students who've said, well, shouldn't it be called the starting point? And I'm like, well, yeah, that's kind of a good idea, and yet no. So when it says ST, S is the endpoint. All right. For number 3, use the figure to name each of the following 5 points. There are 5 points on here. They are A, B, C, D, and E in no particular order. They just happen to give them alphabetically. 2 lines. There are only 2 lines that are shown here, but how you name them, there are lots of ways. So this line, AC, could also be called line CA. Doesn't make any difference which order it's in. And this line that's BD, you could have switched the order and said DB, or you could have said, oh, well, if I say line BC, if it goes through B and it goes through C and it's a line, it's going to go through D. Or you could have called it line CD. Or you could have reversed those. Any of those would be fine. All right, the 2 planes. I think the simplest way to name a plane is almost always just to name this letter. So for me on this, they said one of the planes was plane N, the other one is plane F. It is just the easiest way to name them. Now, if you want to name them by 3 points, you certainly can. Here, notice they said plane ABC. Notice it's 3 points, not all on the same line, some non-collinear points. That would be a way to name plane N. You could name it ABD, so A and B and D. That would also name this bluish plane here. I hope that's the right color. Would be another name for plane N. Okay. The thing that I dislike about this is that my book says ABC and plane N. ABC and plane N are the same plane. That's not 2 different planes. Your book isn't always right, by the way. Most of the time it is, but every now and then not so much. So the other plane is plane F. What if you wanted to name it by 3 points? Well, you have to name 3 non-collinear points. So you could name E, D, and B, for example, or C, D, and E. That would name this plane also. All right, point on BD, well, you could name B or D, or line C, or point C is also on there. Any one of those would be fine. Number 7, here is a diagram that shows you a segment with endpoints at M and N. There's nothing magical, by the way, about M being on the left and N being on the right, nor does it have to be horizontal. You could have drawn it like this. It just needs to have one endpoint named M and the other endpoint named N. A ray with endpoint F that passes through G, F has to be the endpoint, G has to be between that point and the arrow on the end. It doesn't matter where. It could be really close to F, it could be really far away from F. And again, there's nothing magical about it being horizontal. It doesn't have to be. Number 9, a line that contains A and C, and they called it AB, which is fine, but you don't even have to look at the diagram. If you read this sentence, a line that contains A and C, well, a line that contains A and C, the most natural name for it is line AC. All right, a plane that contains A, D, and C, again, if it contains A, D, and C, and those are non-collinear points, the most natural name for this is ADC. The simplest name would be plane M. Remember that capital script letter or italicized letter is the name of the plane. They decided to call it ABD. Probably the least natural name for this one. All right, sketch a figure that shows each of the following. 3 coplanar lines that intersect in a common point. You may be like, what is a common point? Well, that's a point that they all have. Like if you meet somebody and you find that your favorite singer is also their favorite singer, that's something that you have in common. Same idea here. A common point is a point that they all share. For number 12, they drew 2 lines that do not intersect like this, and that's fine. You don't have to put the points on them. It didn't ask you to name them. So if you had simply gone, okay, here are 2 lines that do not intersect, that would have been just fine. All right, number 13, we finally get to one where there's only one right answer for this. It says name 3 collinear points, A, B, and E. Any other set of 3 points is wrong. It has to be point A, B, and E. Remember, collinear means all on the same line. Then it asks about 4 coplanar points. Well, I didn't tell you what coplanar means. You may be like, well, that's dirty pool, Mr. Davis. Well, that's going to happen sometimes. This is an honors math class. And so part of what I expect you to do is either be able to figure something like that out from the context, or scroll back a ways and go, where's the word coplanar in here? Is it anywhere in here? And you keep scrolling, and you go, oh, look, it's even highlighted for you. Points that lie in the same plane are coplanar. Okay? So sometimes I will do that to you intentionally to make you dig a little bit. Sometimes I will do it unintentionally, but either way, you should be able to look back in your book and see something that we may not have talked about in class. So the 4 coplanar points, you could name any 4 of those 5 points, A, B, C, D, E. Any 4 of them would be fine. It does not matter. Number 15, a plane containing point E. You could call it plane ABC, which is what they did. The easiest thing, I think, is to call it plane S. You do have to kind of figure out how to do a script S. I don't know, make it fancy somehow. The only name that would be wrong for this plane, if you were naming it with 3 letters, would be plane A, B, E. Because A, B, and E are collinear points. And when you name a plane, you must name it by 3 non-collinear points. So that is pretty much the only wrong answer if you named it with 3 points. All right, number 16, here's an example of a line containing X and Y. Again, the order is not important. Y could have been on the left and X could be on the right. And then number 17, again, I threw you to the wolves here a little bit. A pair of opposite rays that both contain R. Okay, opposite rays. You're like, I don't know what those are. I know what rays are because we talked about that, but we didn't talk about opposite rays. So scroll back up and you're like, here we go. Opposite rays are 2 rays that have a common endpoint and form a line. We won't use this very much, but it is a term I wanted you to at least have heard. So in this diagram, ray EF and ray EG both have point E in common. They share that point. So that would be a pair of opposite rays with a common endpoint. You don't have to have all 3 of those letters. You do have to have the endpoint. So this ray to the left of R and this ray to the right of R are 2 opposite rays. Okay, if you find that you still have some questions, I'm hopeful that I'm going to be in class with you on Friday, although I don't know that for a fact just yet. So hang on to that question that you have, if you have any on this, and I will hopefully be able to make time to answer some of those questions on Friday. Thank you for watching this video. Please go on to watch the lesson video and take notes on that. Have a great day.